Honestly, I watched this one and Delta Force back to back, and even though, there's a lot to lambast, I enjoyed this way more than Delta Force because it's just always more enjoyable sometimes when you're watching people that don't have a big budget and not a lot of big, megawatt talent, just like trying to get by on what like raw materials they do have.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm willing to like put up with that. Like, I, genuinely love, and he's more competent than Amir Shervan for sure. But like, I genuinely love Herschel Gordon Lewis movies for some of the same reasons. That like,
Ooh, I don't know if I'd say definitely more competent, but
oh no,
sure.
see,
I'll get.
I think so.
Okay,
For anyone that like somehow might not know, Herschel Gordon Lewis probably most famously did Blood Feast, which is like the OG kind of like torture porn splatter movie back in the 60s. But like guys like him or Amir Shervan or any of those type of guys that like, made a whole crop of movies.
Coleman Francis, those kinds of people.
Yeah, that just toiled like this for their whole careers. I'm always willing to at least indulge them because even when it gets bad, there's just like a certain like, I don't know, breeziness to a lot of them a lot of times. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think so. I'm not 100% sure I agree with enjoying this more than the Delta Force, and I think this, we'll get into that, but I think this might be a case of this is not my first Amir Shervan movie. I've seen the highs, or rather the lows, that he's capable of, and to me, I understand this is an incompetent movie, but it is more competent than all the other movies that I've seen by him.
But that just makes me want to watch the other ones more then.
Yeah, well, and that's fair. Yeah, I
Yeah.
will say, I think I said this back when I saw Killing American Style when I did that for this podcast, but I'm like, this just makes me want to see Samurai Cop more, and I haven't seen Samurai Cop since then, so I'm really overdue. But I will say, like, I don't think this had any real big laughs for me, but there were moments that were, funny. The scene with the Mexican and Filipino workers. There's a couple of scenes where actors just flat out flub lines, and it's left in the movie. It's right after that scene when they're talking to the deputy. The deputy flubs his line. He's like, "Well, if you need me to get," and then he's like, "Oh, well, if you need me to help, I can get something," or something. Like, he says something like that, where he says one word and corrects himself, says another word, and then that word that he mistakenly said earlier comes up later in the sentence, and it's like, oh, okay, so it's just he screwed up and they used one take or whatever.
See, that's why that's why the much more accomplished Herschel Gordon Lewis instead allows for in Blood Feast to someone to clearly palm their cue card in their hand, like on screen, because then the line gets delivered stiffly, but it gets delivered, man.
Sure. Yeah, no. There's another more. I think even the line when the guy interrupts Mr. Vincenzo and he says the Mexican Filipino workers are revolting or are striking. He doesn't say the Mexican and Filipino workers. He says Mexican Filipino. I don't think the line was supposed to be said that way, and he just said it. And then they get there, and then they're under the impression only the Mexicans are striking until they also learn that the Filipinos are striking too. So it's like, I don't know what that was, but that made me laugh because I thought for a second we were going to see a full line of descendants of Mexican mothers and Filipino fathers or something like that working for his company or whatever. I thought for a moment. So there's a few moments like that where it's just like, oh, okay, and it's a lot of the stuff that probably doesn't sound that funny when we describe it over here, because it's a lot of shots not matching, a lot of scenes where there's people that are clearly supposed to be in the same location. You just know they aren't, like I mentioned with Eric Freeman. It's funny enough. It's enjoyable enough.
Yeah, no, it is. Like, there's enough, like, all those kind of flubs are, like, fun and goofy kind of flubs. And again, I think another sticking point with me, too, with this versus Delta Force is this is done in 93 minutes. So, except if you're if you're trying to take notes on it, like, this is a pretty light commitment to bang out.
Yes, that's true.